Hi skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com. Welcome to episode 14 of our Top 5 Fridays news videos. As I often say, check out the written version too. My coworker Matt does an awesome job putting those together. He's a great writer, pretty entertaining writer. He often works some humor in there too. So yeah, if you don't normally check out the written article too, I strongly encourage you, or maybe you know somebody that would prefer reading it instead of watching me talk about it. So check that out if you haven't, or show it to your friends and family and whatnot. Pretty light week for news this week, so let's just get right to it. I thought, we're back in we'll call this our ski test studio, or at least ski test set, as kind of another teaser for the 2021 ski test, which we should have out in a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks or so, near the end of the month. So yeah, that's pretty much all the news I have. Let's get to the actual ski industry news. So first up is an update on the FIS World Cup schedule. We've covered this quite a bit since the start of COVID, and all the varying theories and concepts of how we can have a World Cup season. A little while ago, I think it was probably 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point, we talked about the potential for a Europe-only World Cup season. And, when we talked about that, we talked about a lot of kind of potential downsides to that. It would obviously look a lot different, and potentially U.S. athletes wouldn't be involved at all. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen now. And now we've got some kind of new possibilities that are coming up. Once again, skiracing.com did a great job putting this information together. What seems like the focus for everybody right now is the idea of potentially splitting up the speed events and the tech events. So, they would split up Super G and downhill from slalom and GS even more so than it already is, basically with the idea to minimize the amount of travel that has to happen. So as far as World Cup events in the United States, by this method, they would only keep Lake Louise and Beaver Creek. They would only keep those speed events. We would lose the Killington event, the Killington slalom event, which would definitely be a bummer because that's kind of a fan favorite. You get a huge crowd at that event. And the idea is that only the speed athletes would actually have to travel to the United States. And then along the same lines, they're talking about basically consolidating the World Cup stops to fewer venues or fewer locations. So say there's a race, slalom or GS races back to back, like weekend after weekend. They're thinking about, instead of, one being at one resort and one being at what traditionally would be the next stop, just doing back-to-back races at one resort or one venue or one location. So I think that's interesting. I think we're definitely making steps in a more positive direction as to what a World Cup season could look like. I definitely wasn't a fan of the idea of having a Europe-only World Cup. So I think this would be really cool. It'd be a bummer to miss that Killington World Cup. That's very close by to us here in Stowe. So really cool event, and that would be sad to miss, but understandable. And I'm sure it would be back in years to come once this whole thing gets a little more under control. So that's it. Next up, we have pretty similar stuff, or pretty similar news topic. We've talked quite a bit recently about kind of the differences between U.S. ski team athletes and NCAA athletes, and kind of the disconnect between those programs and the method of, the kind of pipeline to get to the U.S. ski team. And this is along the same lines, not exactly the same, but we've recently found out that the U.S. ski team has updated their Project 26. Project 26 is essentially the talent pipeline. It was formed back in 2017, and the idea of the program has always been to provide resources and development tools to athletes from age 12 to 20. So kind of crosses over into the NCAA world that we were talking about, but you could, as soon as you're 21, which some NCAA athletes are 21, this wouldn't necessarily apply to you. But this is still really good news. So they've shifted that program a little bit so that all of the Project 26 athletes now have direct contact with the U.S. ski team. And in fact, there's now a more clear distinction that those athletes are actually part of the U.S. team, basically considering them a development team. But they're officially part of the U.S. team. And the idea behind this is it's supposed to give them just more direct opportunities, more access to coaches, more access to the resources they need. And I think it's really cool. And I think it's an interesting topic after we've talked about those kind of the disconnect between the NCAA and the World Cup realm or the FIS realm. So really cool to see the United States team clearly putting a lot of focus on their development, and hopefully this provides these athletes a little bit more support. It's tough. I don't coach in the racing realm. I coach in the freestyle terrain park realm, but it's tough. I coach a lot of kids in the 12 to 20-year-old range, and it's not the same as it used to be. The barriers to entry are a little bit higher. It requires a significant financial investment for the families to get their kids in the right programs, and travel costs and all that stuff. So anything like this that helps athletes develop through a young age to a professional level, I'm a big fan of. And yeah, hopefully we see some of this trickling into the U.S. freestyle team. It probably will, actually. Almost definitely will. Number 3, this is a really interesting topic and something that kind of hits home for me personally, or at least I have some personal opinions on. A company called Spot Insurance is now offering an injury insurance plan for $25 a month that will cover injury expenses or medical expenses related to an injury up to $20,000. So the idea is that there are a lot of people out there, a lot of young athletic people that are active and probably take some risks, and a lot of those people don't have health insurance. If I recall correctly, I've kind of fallen into that realm at least for a year or two of my life, and it's not a fun place to be. So I think this is cool, and I think it certainly, there's value to a program like this. That's much, much cheaper than if you're to get a full insurance plan, although I'm an advocate for having a full health insurance plan if you can. I think that's a smart thing to do. But yeah, it's going to be valuable for certain people. There are some exceptions here. So basically what they call thrill seeking or excessive risk taking, it won't apply to those. Basically how they refer to it is if you're in a fall or die situation, then that won't apply to you, which I think is tough because that seems a little bit vague. And then also injury due to or as a result of intoxication, which certainly makes sense. Now, one issue with this is it's not available countrywide yet. It's only available in 9 states, with most of those states being in the Northeast. This isn't specific to skiers either. This is available to anybody. And I think it's interesting. This is the lack of health insurance in young people is definitely an issue, and it's definitely an issue in ski towns specifically. It's, oftentimes the kind of ski bum jobs that people get in ski towns don't provide benefits like health insurance. And a lot of time people are kind of left to fend for themselves, so to speak, or maybe can't afford a program through the state. Like here in Vermont, we have Vermont Health Connect, but it's still fairly expensive. Now, the issue that I see with this personally is $20,000 is great, but that's not going to cover the cost of a major injury. So if anybody watching this is considering getting this insurance, you got to keep in the back of your mind that you could easily have medical expenses that exceed $20,000, and then you're basically back in the same situation. I mean, granted, you don't owe that $20,000, but I'll tell you from experience that an ACL reconstruction or a femur reconstruction, both of those things surpass $20,000 in total medical costs, and a lot of other things do. So keep that in mind, and I think it's really important for people to think about that when they're considering a program like this or an insurance program like this. But still very interesting, and I think there's value there. Next up, number 4, Loveland out in Colorado. Loveland has been approved by, I believe, the Colorado Forestry Department or maybe the U.S. Forestry Department. I don't remember exactly, but they've been approved to add 600 acres of cat skiing. So basically, the idea is this will all be guided backcountry skiing. And Loveland has cited a growing demand for guided backcountry tours, specifically in the state of Colorado. Now, I think that's basically piggybacking on the idea that just the demand and the interest in backcountry skiing is also skyrocketing. And I think probably the biggest benefit of a program like this is it's giving people an easier way to get their foot in the door, so to speak, an easier way to experience backcountry skiing, get their feet wet, whatever analogy you want to use, and do so in a safe way, a relatively controlled, safe way. It's pretty dangerous if you don't have any experience and you don't know what you're doing and you're just heading out in the backcountry with you and a few buddies. Not the smartest thing to do unless you've taken some classes and got your AVI certifications and all that kind of stuff. Now this, you don't have to go through all that stuff and you can still enjoy it and experience it, and maybe it'll act as a stepping stone for some people who have never done skiing like that and want to. This is kind of a safer transition to that final, being a backcountry skier yourself. So kudos to Loveland. I think that's awesome. If you've ever been, to Loveland Pass or this area, this part of Colorado, you know how cool the terrain is. So I'm hoping that someday I can get out there and just see what the cat skiing operation, this expanded cat skiing operation at Loveland is all about. Copper has a pretty cool cat skiing operation out there too. So plenty of opportunities now to head to, Summit County, the mecca of skiing in Colorado, and do some safe backcountry skiing. So check it out if you're interested. And then finally, we have our edits of the week. I think this was a couple weeks ago as well. We had a kind of teaser trailer for the MSP films Huck Yeah. Now we have the full trailer. Really, really good. Classic MSP stuff. Just insane cinematography. They've got a pretty robust list of athletes in this movie. So definitely check that out. I would strongly encourage you to watch that trailer. I'm sure it'll make you want to go skiing because it made me want to go skiing. And Carl Phosphed's crazy, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that was a nose butter, or like almost not even a nose butter. It was almost like a full 180 while skiing down something really steep. He almost like pops, does a 180, and then out of the 180, I'm pretty sure, the whole thing, it looked like it was turning into nose butter cork 7, but the way he does it's almost like 180 to like switch nose manual to switch rodeo 5. It's insane. And he does it like down such a steep face. I can't remember exactly what point in the video it is, but watch it and watch for that shot because it blew my mind. Next edit of the week. This is a good one. Matt's always really good at finding these little edits. This only had like 300 views so far, so let's see if we can up that view count. But it's an animated Lego edit called Send It. Really, really well done. Clearly, the guy that made this has some pretty significant experience making stop motion animation, and it did a really good job. There's, it's like a classic ski town scene. It's just really cool. I can't really describe it well enough. You just got to go watch it. But he pretty much hit the nail on the head in terms of the feel of a little ski town. And then lastly, we have mountain bike edit. I believe I'm going to pronounce his name right, but forgive me if I'm not. Remy Metallier is basically chased down some pretty technical high-speed trails by a professional drone pilot from Flow Motion Aerials. So not a skiing edit, but really, really good. And I personally am just fascinated by the capabilities of drones, and the pilots are getting, pilots and the technology both are getting pretty darn impressive, where the footage coming out, that the footage that you can create with a drone is just unbelievable. So that's it. That's our Top 5 Fridays news video for the week. Thanks as always for joining us, and keep an eye out for the ski test results. They'll be online before you know it. And we've been working hard putting it together and making it as polished and awesome as we possibly can. So excited to share it with you when it's all done. And yeah, you'll just have to be patient for a couple more weeks. So thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you soon.